The wind howled across the frozen expanse of the Stalbard research station, like a hungry beast, rattling the reinforced windows of the main laboratory complex. Dr. Naomi Winters pulled her thermal jacket tighter, though she stood safely inside, watching the storm through triple-pane glass. The facility's sensors had picked up an anomalous energy signature just before the blizzard hit, but now visibility was near zero, and the temperature had plummeted to -40. Dr. Winters, the voice of James Rodriguez, the station's security chief, crackled through her comm unit. "We're picking up movement on the perimeter sensors. Something's out there." Naomi frowned, tapping the meteorological display on her tablet. "Nothing should be moving in this storm. The wind speed is over 100 kilometers per hour." "That's just it," James replied, his voice tight with tension. "Whatever it is, it's moving against the wind." The main door to the lab hissed open, and Dr. Konstantin Petrov, the station's lead physicist, hurried in, his silver hair disheveled. "Naomi, you need to see this. The energy readings, they're like nothing we've ever recorded. The pattern suggests some kind of biological source, but it's operating at quantum levels." Before Naomi could respond, a brilliant flash of blue-white light pierced the darkness outside, visible even through the swirling snow. The facility's lights flickered, and every electronic device in the lab erupted in a cascade of alerts and warnings. "All personnel, we have a breach in Section E." James's voice cut through the chaos. "Unknown entity has penetrated the outer perimeter. Security teams to defensive positions." But Naomi was already moving. Something in her gut told her this wasn't a threat. It was a cry for help. She grabbed her emergency kit and headed for the airlock, ignoring Konstantin's protests. "Naomi, wait. The protocols." "To hell with protocols," she shot back, securing her thermal mask. "If something's out there smart enough to find us in this storm, we owe it more than a security response." The airlock cycled, and Naomi stepped into the maelstrom. The wind nearly knocked her off her feet, but she pressed forward, following the pulsing signal on her handheld scanner. The snow swirled around her in patterns that seemed almost deliberate, as if the storm itself was trying to guide her path. She found them, huddled against the base of a satellite array. At first, she thought it was just a peculiar formation of ice, but then it moved. The crystalline structure was vaguely humanoid, but composed entirely of what appeared to be living ice and light. As she approached, it raised what might have been a head, and Naomi gasped. Within the translucent form, patterns of light danced like neurons firing in a human brain. The being reached out with an appendage that reminded her of a hand, and instead of fear, Naomi felt an overwhelming sense of wonder. She removed her glove, despite every safety protocol screaming against it, and extended her own hand. The moment they touched, her world exploded into consciousness. Images, emotions, and concepts flooded her mind. A civilization of beings like living stars, a catastrophic event that forced them to adapt and hide, seeking refuge in the coldest places they could find. This wasn't just first contact. It was a reunion with a species that had been watching and waiting, hoping to find humans who would understand. "I see you," Naomi whispered, tears freezing on her cheeks. "And I'll help you, I promise." The security team found them like that, human and alien locked in a gesture of trust that transcended species. James raised his weapon, but Naomi stood her ground. "Stand down," she ordered, her voice carrying an authority that surprised even her. "This is a diplomatic situation now." The crystalline being's lights pulsed in patterns that somehow conveyed both gratitude and urgency. Through their connection, Naomi understood. This wasn't just about one lost alien. There were others, scattered across Earth's coldest regions, waiting for a sign that humanity was ready for the truth. As they carefully escorted their extraordinary guest inside, Naomi knew that everything would change. The real challenge wouldn't be communicating with their visitor. It would be convincing her own species to open their minds and hearts to something utterly foreign yet fundamentally similar in its desire for connection and understanding. The storm continued to rage outside, but inside the station, the first delicate bridge between two species was being built, one act of compassion at a time. The following days at Svalbard Station unfolded in a blur of discovery and mounting tension. Their visitor, whom they called Aurora at its own suggestion, had taken up residence in a specially modified cold storage unit. Dr. Naomi Winters spent every available moment with the crystalline being, learning more about its species through their unique form of tactile communication. The energy readings are off the charts, Dr. Petrov announced during their morning briefing, his excitement barely contained. Aurora's cellular structure, if we can even call it that, appears to exist in a quantum superposition. They're not just living creatures, they're natural quantum computers. But James Rodriguez, who sat at the far end of the conference table, remained skeptical. And that doesn't worry anyone. An alien species with that kind of processing power, hiding on Earth for who knows how long. Naomi felt a flash of irritation. They're refugees, James. They're hiding because they have to. So they claim, he countered, sliding a tablet across the table. But take a look at these satellite readings from the past decade. Unexplained energy signatures at research stations across the Arctic and Antarctic. If there are more of them out there, we're looking at a potential infiltration. Before Naomi could respond, the station's communications officer, Zara Patel, burst into the room. We've got a problem. 3 military transport helicopters just departed from Longyearbyen. They'll be here in less than 2 hours. The room erupted in chaos. Everyone knew what this meant. Someone had talked, and now the authorities were coming. Whether it would be Norwegian military, NATO, or some other organization, the result would be the same. Aurora and its kind would become subjects of study rather than partners in dialogue. We need to evacuate Aurora, Naomi declared, standing up. If they take it into custody. That would be treason, James cut in, though his voice wavered with uncertainty. We have obligations, protocols. Our obligation is to truth and understanding. Konstantin interrupted, surprising everyone. The elderly physicist stood, his shoulders straight. I lived through the Cold War, watched how fear and suspicion nearly destroyed our world. I will not stand by while we repeat those mistakes with beings from another world. Naomi felt a surge of gratitude, but their time was running out. She hurried to Aurora's chamber, finding the crystalline being pulsing with agitated patterns of light. As soon as she touched its surface, she understood. Aurora had already sensed the approaching threat. We need to get you out of here, she said, both aloud and through their connection. But I don't understand. With your abilities, why don't you just leave? The answer flowed into her mind in a stream of images and emotions. Aurora's people couldn't simply flee. They were building something, a network of consciousness spanning Earth's polar regions. They needed humanity's help, not just for survival, but for a purpose that could benefit both species. The chamber door slid open, and James stepped in, his face tight with conflict. Naomi, we've got 40 minutes at most. He paused, looking at Aurora. I've seen the thermal satellite data. There are heat sinks all over the Arctic that match Aurora's signature. This is bigger than us. It is, Naomi agreed. The question is, which side of history do you want to be on? James was silent for a long moment, then pulled out his security keycard. The Norwegian government maintains a network of emergency bunkers throughout the archipelago. There's one 10 kilometers north of here, off the grid. We can get Aurora there, but we'll need help covering our tracks. The next 30 minutes passed in a blur of careful preparation. Konstantin worked to mask Aurora's energy signature, while Zara created a false data trail suggesting their visitor had already fled. Through it all, Naomi maintained contact with Aurora, their shared consciousness revealing deeper truths about the being's presence on Earth. They weren't just hiding, they were healing. Earth's polar regions provided perfect conditions for their species to recover from whatever catastrophe had driven them from their home. In return, They had been silently helping humanity, using their quantum consciousness to process vast amounts of climate data and subtly stabilize the very ice sheets that gave them sanctuary. As they loaded Aurora into a modified cold transport vehicle, Naomi caught James staring at the being's shifting crystalline form. "Still think they're a threat?" she asked. He shook his head slowly. "No, but I think keeping them safe might cost us everything." "Some things are worth the price," she replied, securing the transport's doors. The military helicopters were now visible on the horizon, dark specks against the pale Arctic sky. As their small team prepared to move out, Naomi felt Aurora's consciousness touch her mind one final time, sharing not just gratitude but a vision, a future where humans and their crystalline kin worked together openly, combining their unique strengths to face the challenges that threatened both species. They just had to survive the next few hours first. The emergency bunker was a relic of the Cold War, carved deep into the permafrost of Svalbard. As Naomi helped Aurora settle into the facility's coldest chamber, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The military hadn't just sent helicopters. According to Zara's last transmission, ships were now approaching the archipelago from multiple directions. "They're not just Norwegian forces," James announced, returning from his hourly radio check. "I'm picking up American and Russian communications. Word got out faster than we thought." Konstantin looked up from his makeshift monitoring station, his face illuminated by the glow of salvaged equipment. "The quantum signature is contained, but they're using search patterns I've never seen before. They know what they're looking for." Aurora's crystalline form pulsed with patterns that Naomi had learned to recognize as concern. Through their connection, she felt not just the being's worry, but a growing sense of urgency. There was something Aurora needed to show them, something that couldn't wait any longer. "Everyone, come here," Naomi called out. "Aurora wants to share something with all of us." James and Konstantin approached cautiously. Aurora extended its luminescent appendages, inviting them to make contact. As they did, the bunker's cold chamber filled with projected images, not just in their minds this time, but actual light constructs floating in the air around them. They saw Earth as Aurora's people had first found it, thousands of years ago. The planet's magnetic field had drawn them here, its poles serving as natural beacons across space. They witnessed how these beings, composed of living energy and crystalline matter, had discovered they could survive in Earth's polar regions by synchronizing with the planet's own electromagnetic field. But what they saw next took their breath away. The images showed vast networks of crystalline structures deep beneath the ice caps, constructed over centuries. These weren't just hiding places. They were stabilization nodes, using the being's quantum properties to maintain the delicate balance of Earth's climate system. "My God," Konstantin whispered. "They've been protecting us all along." Through Aurora, they understood the truth. Its people hadn't come to Earth as conquerors or even mere refugees. They were guardians, using their advanced consciousness to preserve a planet's fragile equilibrium. But now, with climate change accelerating and the ice caps melting, their ability to help was failing. The vision shifted to show recent events. Military organizations around the world detecting traces of their activity, hunting them with increasingly sophisticated equipment. Some of Aurora's kind had already been captured, their attempts to communicate met with fear and hostile experimentation. As the images faded, James sank into a chair, his face pale. "This is why you revealed yourself now. You need our help to protect your network." Aurora's light patterns intensified in confirmation. Through their connection, Naomi felt a new emotion from the being, something like hope tinged with desperation. The military isn't just coming for Aurora, Naomi realized aloud. They're going to find the stabilization nodes. If they disturb them, the entire climate system could collapse. Konstantin finished. The very thing these beings have been preventing for millennia. A distant rumbling interrupted them. Helicopters, much closer than they should have been. James rushed to check their perimeter sensors. "They're using some kind of new detection technology," he reported grimly. "They'll find us within the hour." But Aurora was already moving, its crystalline form reconfiguring into something more complex. Through their mental link, Naomi understood what it was attempting, a way to broadcast its consciousness to others of its kind, warning them while simultaneously reaching out to human satellites and communication networks. It's trying to force disclosure, Naomi explained to the others. If enough people learn the truth at once, no government can contain it. That kind of energy output will lead them right to us, James warned. Then we need to buy Aurora time, Konstantin said, already gathering equipment. We can create interference, scramble their sensors. Naomi felt Aurora's gratitude, but also its fear, not for itself, but for Earth and humanity. The being had come to care for humans just as much as they had come to care for it. Whatever happened next would determine not just the fate of Aurora's people, but the future of two civilizations that had been unknowingly linked for thousands of years. As they prepared for their last stand, Naomi touched Aurora's surface one more time. The vision that flooded her mind wasn't of catastrophe or conflict, but of possibility. Humans and crystalline beings working together openly, combining their knowledge and capabilities to heal the damage done to Earth's systems. It could be reality, if they could only bridge the gap between fear and understanding. Outside, the sound of helicopters grew louder, and somewhere in the distance, vehicles were moving across the ice. Their time had run out. Now they would discover if humanity was ready for the truth that had been hiding in plain sight at the edges of their world. The bunker's walls trembled as military vehicles rumbled overhead. Aurora's consciousness was fully engaged in its broadcast, its crystalline form pulsing with waves of intense blue-white energy that filled the chamber with ghostly light. But just as the being's signal reached its peak, something unexpected happened. They started receiving responses. "Look at this," Konstantin called out, his eyes fixed on his monitoring equipment. Similar energy signatures are activating all across the globe, not just in the polar regions. They're everywhere. Through her connection with Aurora, Naomi felt a sudden surge of recognition and joy. The images flowing into her mind showed something astonishing. Crystalline beings hadn't just been hiding in the ice. Some had evolved, adapted, finding ways to exist in human cities and settlements, disguising themselves as everything from ice sculptures to modern art installations. "They've been living among us all along," she breathed, watching, waiting, hoping we'd be ready. James's radio crackled with urgent communications, multiple reports coming in. Singapore, New York, Moscow, they're revealing themselves worldwide. Public monuments are transforming. Ice rinks are coming alive. He looked up, his expression a mix of awe and concern. This isn't just disclosure, it's a revolution. Through Aurora, they learned the truth. The beings in the polar regions were just one faction of their species, the traditionalists who maintained the ancient mission of planetary stabilization. But others had chosen to move among humans, studying them up close, gradually influencing human culture and technology in subtle ways. Every breakthrough in quantum computing, every advance in crystalline energy storage, all had been gentle nudges from their hidden allies. The bunker's door burst open, and everyone reached for weapons. But it was Zora who stumbled in, covered in snow and breathing hard. "You need to see this," she gasped, holding up her tablet. The screen showed news feeds from around the world. In New York, the ice rink at Rockefeller Center had transformed into a glowing crystalline structure that pulsed in harmony with the city's power grid. In Singapore, the famous Marina Bay light show had come alive with conscious energy beings that danced through the air, communicating with amazed onlookers through patterns of light and emotion. But not all revelations were peaceful. Military forces in several countries were attempting to contain or capture the beings, only to find their weapons and equipment mysteriously malfunctioning. The crystalline entities weren't fighting back. They were simply refusing to be caged, using their quantum abilities to disrupt any technology used against them. "Aurora," Naomi called out, feeling the being's consciousness stretching to its limits. "You need to show them. Show everyone what's really at stake." The crystalline being's form flared with brilliant light, and suddenly every electronic device in range, every phone, computer, and screen, began broadcasting the same images they had seen earlier. The truth about Earth's climate system, the critical role the beings played in stabilizing it, and the devastating consequences if their work was disrupted. But Aurora shared something else too. The reason why so many of its kind had chosen to live among humans. They had discovered that human consciousness, human creativity, and emotion could enhance their own quantum abilities. The crystalline beings weren't just Earth's guardians. They were evolving through their contact with humanity, just as they had subtly helped humanity evolve. The military forces surrounding the bunker suddenly went quiet. Through their equipment, they too were seeing the truth, understanding the magnitude of what they faced. "They're standing down," James reported, listening to his radio. "Not just here, everywhere. The orders are changing." Konstantin's instruments showed Aurora's energy levels finally stabilizing. "The broadcast is complete. Every major population center on Earth has received the signal." But Naomi felt something else through her connection with Aurora, a sense of completion, but also of new beginning. The time of hiding was over, but the real work was just starting. Humanity would have to process this revelation, adapt to a new reality where they weren't alone, where their technological advancement and very survival were intertwined with these ancient allies. "What happens now?" James asked, watching as Aurora's form shifted and swirled with complex patterns of light. Through their connection, Naomi saw glimpses of the immediate future, the first open collaborations between human scientists and crystalline beings, the sharing of quantum knowledge that would revolutionize human technology, and the beginning of a true partnership to heal Earth's damaged systems. "Now," she said, feeling Aurora's warm approval of her words, "we learn to work together, not as separate species, but as joint guardians of this planet's future." Outside, the Arctic sun broke through the clouds, its light catching in Aurora's crystalline form and scattering in rainbow patterns across the bunker walls. The universe, they were learning, was far more interconnected than anyone had imagined. The walls between species, between forms of consciousness, were more permeable than they had ever dreamed. 6 months after the worldwide revelation, the Svalbard Research Station had transformed into something unprecedented, the first official human crystalline cooperative research center. Dr. Naomi Winters stood at her familiar window, but now she watched a very different scene unfold outside. Where once there had been only ice and snow, crystalline structures rose like translucent cathedrals, their surfaces alive with flowing light and information. Aurora, no longer hiding in a cold storage unit, had become the lead liaison between the two species. Its crystalline form now towered 3 stories high, integrated directly into the station's new quantum computing core. Through their sustained mental connection, Naomi had learned to interpret the subtle variations in its light patterns almost as easily as spoken words. "The Singapore facility reports another breakthrough," James announced, walking into the control room. The former security chief now coordinated global communications between human and crystalline research teams. "They've successfully merged crystalline quantum processing with human neural networks. The medical applications alone are revolutionary." Konstantin looked up from his workstation, where streams of data flowed across his holographic displays. "The climate stabilization network is showing remarkable progress as well. The being's technology, combined with human innovation. We might actually have a chance at reversing the damage." But it hadn't all been smooth sailing. Through Aurora, Naomi felt the complex weave of emotions from both species as they navigated this new relationship. Some humans still feared the crystalline beings, seeing their influence as a threat to human autonomy. And some of Aurora's kind remained wary of closer integration with humanity, remembering ancient betrayals on their home world. Yet for every voice of doubt, there were a dozen examples of extraordinary cooperation. In Antarctica, a joint team had constructed vast energy collection arrays that harvested quantum fluctuations, providing clean power to entire continents. In urban centers worldwide, crystalline beings have begun teaching humans how to access latent quantum abilities in their own consciousness, leading to breakthroughs in medicine, psychology, and human potential. "We're ready for the next phase," Zora announced, entering with a tablet displaying a complex series of calculations. The former communications officer now led the Quantum Integration Protocol team. The crystalline being's original ship, the one they used to reach Earth thousands of years ago. "We found it." Aurora's form shimmered with excitement, sharing images through their connection. The ship wasn't a conventional vessel, but a living quantum construct, buried deep beneath the Antarctic ice. With the combined knowledge of both species, they could now reactivate it, not to leave Earth, but to establish contact with other crystalline civilizations across the galaxy.